M80 just qualified for VCT America's play-in, and make no mistake about it, they sure are looking to set off some massive explosions in Tier 1. Now they get a chance to prove themselves on the big stage and try to book their ticket to Champ Shanghai. But I know that's not what we are all focused on right now, because the only thing living rent-free in our heads right now is the possibility of a grudge match between M80 and Sentinels. Welcome to Sinistry, and today we're talking M80. We will discuss exactly how this revenge roster came about, break down the players behind their massive 15-game win streak, and ask the million-dollar question: is this just a honeymoon phase? Or is M80's dominance proof that Kaplan's vision was right all along?
But you're absolute pussies!
Stick around as we will also discuss if this team is really ready for the Tier 1 grind. So, we all know the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And that couldn't be more true as far as M80 is concerned. Most of you already know about the Sentinels kickoff disaster that left Kaplan and Caillou out in the cold, but if somehow you were living under a rock this past year, then I have a video theorizing on that fallout that you can check out after this. Anyway, do you think Kaplan and Caillou are out for revenge? And also, that decision by Sentinels is what makes M80's climb to Tier 1 so fascinating, because who would have thought that a team made out of Tier 1 rejects, Tier 2 drifters, and a player that everyone swore was too old to be playing, hello baby bay, could actually blast the competition away and prove they're a team everyone needs to pay attention to. I still remember looking at this roster and wondering how they would fare against Tier 2's rising superstars such as Ion, Son of Car, and Smoke, or established veterans like Sander, Nerve, and Floor. Well, little did we know that M80 was hiding a rising star of its own in Boni, which we'll talk more about later. For now, we need to realize that this is the quickest turnaround in terms of reaching the VCT. We thought Poppin and the gang did it fast when they qualified in a year, but M80 managed to reach Tier 1 in only half a year, or maybe even less, considering they only locked in this roster in March. To be fair, we have a different format now, but that doesn't take away from how absurd it is for a team that was scrambling to be relevant a few months ago to now dominating the rest of the competition. But with how fast all of this is going, it's hard not to ask, is M80 just in a honeymoon phase? To determine if this is a fluke, we need to examine their timeline, as the craziest part of their dominance is that a few months ago, this roster didn't even exist. Back in January, this roster was way different. Nismo was the coach, and the team consisted of Derek, GMD, Paint, alongside Boni and Alvin Boy. The players tried to bring in results, but by late February, it was clear that the project simply wasn't clicking. They were eliminated early out of Challenger Stage 1 and the pressure was on. It was a now or never situation, because if the team wanted any hope of locking down a partnership spot in 2027, they had to give Riot a reason to actually care. So rather than going into another hiatus, M80 realized they needed to make changes, and fast. And as fate would have it, the scene was struck by the bombshell of the year. Sentinels unexpectedly cut ties with Kaplan and Caillou. M80 pounced on the opportunity to sign a Masters winning coach and a promising player, added spaz to the mix, and finally dusted off the living legend Nismo to put him back into the server. It was a series of high-risk, high-reward moves that paid off big time for the newly revitalized roster, transforming a middling team into the undisputed heavyweights of the Challenger circuit. With the dominance M80 showing right now, I can't help but think, what if Sentinels stayed patient and let things run their course? Anyway, before we continue, just a quick heads up that we now have a Discord server. So if you're looking for a community to talk about VCT or Valorant in general, then we have the place for you. Massive shoutout to Rushhead for holding down the fort and being an absolute legend in the chat. Now, let's quickly look at the team, as there are some quite interesting personalities in here that I want to talk about. Let's first start with Boni. This guy led the whole Challengers League in stats alongside Nismo, and based on what I saw in the Stage 3 finals, he showed a great balancing act of aggression and discipline. He can lock down an angle with the op all day, and you could try to do your sneakiest jump peek, but he will still hit you anyway. And if you don't give him anything, he would simply run you down at a moment's notice. You're trying to figure out how to escape from this guy? Well, forget it, because one way or the other, he will gun you down. It's a damn if you do, damn if you don't kind of thing when you're playing against Boni. So next up, if you are not familiar with our boy Alvin here, then you're missing out. He was part of the TSM roster that lost against Envy in last year's Ascension tournament. However, he never let that loss get to him because in just under a year, he was back to the top of Tier 2 and he made sure they got the call up to VCT this time. In terms of his playstyle, he mostly held the flank but he had no trouble stepping up both in the clutch and when the team needed him to be in certain spots to be the playmaker. Okay, now let's talk about Spaz. I'll be honest, I have heard of Boni and Alvin Boy even before they were in M80, but Spaz was not on my radar at all. And while that may lead to some thinking that he got carried to Tier 1, well, you'd better slow down because between 2025 and 2026, Spaz was part of teams that have won Challengers 3 times. To put it into context, there have been 6 NA Challengers tournament up to this day and Spaz won half of them. He might not be the flashiest or the highest ranked player out there, but he doesn't need to be. Together with Alvin Boy, they are the team's anchor duo, ensuring everything is under control while the others wreak havoc upon the enemy team. Now, moving on to Kayu. We already know the guy. He was dropped by Sentinels together with Kaplan and was then picked up by M80. To this day, we don't know why he was kicked from the team. I was under the impression that he was just a guy caught in the crossfires, a collateral of some sort. I have a lot of thoughts about Sen's decision, which we'll talk about later. So yeah, Kayu got thrown into the pits that is Tier 2, but instead of melting under the pressure, he walked out of the fire as the sharpest weapon on the server. We will see Kayu's second rodeo in Tier 1 soon enough, but if Stage 3 was any indication, he's absolutely looking ready to make Sen realize they made a mistake. And lastly, we have Nismo, the father not only of his child, but also of this team. And if he has beaten you in ranked, then he might be your daddy as well, bro. In Gen Z terms, this guy has been grinding for decades now and I don't know why there are no Tier 1 teams willing to give him a try because at this point, he's more than proven that he is dedicated to the game. And to top it off, he tied with Boni at the top of the stat sheet. To put that into perspective, a 32-year-old super unk just outperformed the rest of the league, which consists of mechanically gifted 20-somethings. Add to the fact that he was also playing an out-of-meta agent in KO. There's nothing left to say, it is indeed the year of the unks. Before we move forward, we also need to talk about Kaplan, as he is not only the mastermind, but his playbook also led the team to a 15-game winning streak. They have been winning for 3 months straight and it looks like there's no signs of them slowing down. Now they're going head to head with the best teams in the region. Well, maybe not the best because the Tier 1 teams in the plains actually lost to the teams that advanced to the playoffs. Anyway, now we have to answer the question I posted earlier. Is M80's dominance proof that Kaplan's system has always been fundamentally sound? And that Kayu was actually a good player? And is it just that Sentinels simply lacked the patience to see it through? Well, if M80's winning streak is any indication, I think that Kaplan's system has always been good. He has always been a good coach and I think where it went awry is when he just couldn't let go of the belief he had in the last roster he had in Sen. He seems so hell-bent on proving that the roster he built in the off-season was the correct way to move forward. We may not know the reason why he wanted second on flex or why he no longer wanted John on IGL, but it was clear that Cap made some mistakes. Anyway, at the end of the day, everyone makes mistakes. Back then, it was simply Kaplan's turn. But now I bet he's pumped and ready to show the VCT that he's still the championship winning coach we once knew. As for Kayu, Sentinels should have never kicked him. They should have just let John QD take the reins and let Kayu still be the initiator of the team. But I suppose all is fair in love and war because Kayu's relegation to Tier 2 definitely did him a lot of good, giving him more experience before he takes his second shot at the VCT. And now it makes me think. Would that roster have made things work had Sen management given them the time? I guess we'll never really know, but if you want my personal opinion on it, I think it still wouldn't have worked. But not because of Kaplan and Kayu, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. Moving on, while I see this team making waves, there's still one thing that I think about and it's whether they're ready for the Tier 1 grind. And some may think M80 is just in a honeymoon phase, but think again. We're talking about a Masters winning coach after all, and if you ask me, he has already shown that he is still the great coach we once knew with the way M80 is playing. What's more, he may have a couple of new tricks up his sleeve. And what makes it all work is that he seems to have found a gem of a team that is willing to execute his playbook with no questions asked. I just hope they are ready for that environment, because in Challengers, they were all cozy playing from their homes, but the play-ins, I would say, are definitely going to give them a run for their money, because not only will they be playing outside their comfort zone, they will also be busy with a whole lot of things, such as interviews, fan interaction, content stuff, media, or whatever. Although they don't sound like much, they still cut down the time of the players and the coaches, time that they could have used to prep or rest. So, despite M80 being a solid team, it is left to be seen if they can handle the VCT grind. Some might think of comparing them to NV, but I don't think it's a valid comparison, mainly because of the Kane and Ian situation. Additionally, they have a coach with a ton of Tier 1 experience, which will significantly help ease the transition to Tier 1. So, that's it for now. As always, thank you for your time. I'll see you down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed, hit that sub button so you don't miss out, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.